to Atlantic Ocean, upon me hills to country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday, it's focused on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information. About culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Thursday, and it's Tough Talking Thursday. We are live on FOL TV and Kia Radio FM 95.9, broadcasting live from Monrovia. Today, we're going to be talking about the implication of the proposed amendment to the Local Government Act. That's the proposed amendment to the Local Government Act. What are the implications, and how does this affect you? How is it important to you? We're going to be talking about all this. I have with me somebody who eats, sleep, and drink local government. He is FOL resident economist Thomas B. Kanneh, who is joining us from Addis Ababa. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dennis. Good to be back today. I miss Tough Talking Thursday a lot. But hello to you and hello to all of our listeners, those who are listening to us through the internet and those who are following on the radio in Monrovia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Let me welcome our man at controls there in Monrovia, Mr. George Goe. Georgie, welcome to the show.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Dennis, and good evening, Thomas. It's good to be here this evening with you guys.
We want to say hello to our people in Monrovia, in Bapolu, in Bome, in Mangibi, in Nimba, in Bassa, and maybe in my hometown of Dudweka in Sino County. And today, let me say, I told you the last time that based on how I wake up, the first 10 callers who will make meaningful contribution to the show, they will have $2 scratch card so that they can call again. Right, Josh? The first 10 callers to call in and interact with us. I mean, after we discuss, not just calling, but we want you to call and ask questions or make comments based on what we are talking about. You are not only calling to say, hey, hello, but contribute. And you have $2 scratch card today, the first 10 callers. If I'm so happy, I can even increase the number. Tom, how are you doing, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. It's great to be back, like I said, and to discuss a very critical topic. So I come today as a citizen of Liberia, one that comes from outside Monrovia. I do know that when local government issues are affected, it does affect me as a citizen. So I think it's a pleasure to be back to discuss this very important topic.
Thank you. Again, very, very important topic. You may not know about it, but that's why we want to bring you. So we'll start from the very basic, because the thing here is the implication of the proposed amendment to the Local Government Act. And so by the time you say that, maybe it's your first time to hear about the Local Government Act. So you are
Yeah.
wondering, what is that all about? And that local government act is about one big question or one big problem they're trying to solve. One thing they're trying to do is decentralization. So Tom, I want you to situate the local government act and decentralization. What is decentralization? Why when we talk about local government act, we're talking decentralization. I want you to start us from there and give us the basis.
Thank you very much, Dennis. So before I come to defining what decentralization is and then come on to the Local Government Act, I want to give a background as to how decentralization became a prominent feature as part of governance processes. So if you go back to um, 30 or 40 years ago, you will realize that for the African continent, many of the countries that we have in Africa today who are independent got their independence from their colonial masters around the 1960s. So this is why you see Nigeria, Ghana, many of these countries are around 50, 60 years old. So for our region, when these countries became independent from the 1960s onto the 1970s, they had very big ambitions. They wanted to build dams, they wanted to build roads and all of that. And so they took on huge amount of debt in the 1970s. But one of the things that contributed to that high level of debt was because oil prices were very high in the 1970s, and the interest rates were low in the US and developed countries. So many of these countries took a lot of a lot of loan to be able to develop the young countries that they had. But that also wasn't just the case in Africa, also in Latin America. So there was a huge debt portfolio of developing countries back in the 1970s. And then in the 1980s, a switch. Interest rate went up in the US, the cost of borrowing increased, and so the debts that they had on their books became very expensive for them to pay. Then came the issue of the structural adjustment. The World Bank and the IMF came in to be able to stabilize these economies. And that's how the structural adjustment came. And that structural adjustment was basically to be able to tell the government, you cannot keep spending the way you are spending. You don't have the resources to spend. And so they started to cut social spending, for instance, spending on education, spending on health, and all of that. They started to call it down in Africa, in Latin America, because of that crisis that happened. And it was in 1983, Mexico was the first country that said, I'm no longer able to pay my debt. So they defaulted. And that became a serious problem in Latin America and Africa. So the whole 1980 was a structural adjustment program to be able to stabilize these economies. And it was very painful. They forced the governments to privatize, they forced them to reduce social spending, and there was a crisis in all of Latin America and Africa and part of Eastern Europe. So the 1980s came with that structural adjustment. In 1987, UNICEF released a report called Structural Adjustment with the Human Face. And they stated in that report how that structural adjustment actually pushed people in poverty, how it affected children, and all of that. So by the 1990s, then came the issue of shifting from that structural adjustment to be able to do broader governance reforms and reform the public sectors so that they could be much more efficient and effective in terms of delivering services and also improving governance. So it was in the 1990s that this whole concept of decentralization came to be able to improve public sector efficiency for service delivery and also to promote participation. So that's how decentralization started. Also, in that decade of the 1990s, democratization increased. Many countries became multi-party democracies, and therefore they needed citizens to play a role in terms of deciding who could lead them and in terms of participating in service delivery. So that's how decentralization became a huge issue across all of these developing countries. I'm saying this because we as a country, as Liberia, we came late to decentralization. So you will see that while all of that structural adjustment was taking place in the 1980s, we had President Doe in power at that time, and we had our own problems after the 1980 coup. In 1990, when decentralization became a prominent issue in Africa and Latin America, we're going through civil war. So this is why when you look at our history, you will not see a lot of conversation around decentralization until our civil war ended in 2003. So it was actually during Madam Saliv's second term that we started working on decentralization reforms to be able to develop a policy, to be able to pass a law, and all of that. So in 2011, before the Local Government Act was developed, there was a policy that was developed. It's called the Decentralization and Local Government Policy. So it was that policy that gave birth to the Local Government Act. And in that policy, the government of Liberia expressed their intent to be able to decentralize, but yet remain a unitary state. So we are not like the Nigerians of this world that is completely federal. We're not like India. So when you go to the to the decentralization and local government policy that was developed in 2011, we say we remain a unitary state, but yet we devolve political, fiscal, and administrative functions to local governments to increase participation, to improve service delivery, and to make sure that our development is inclusive. So in that policy, the government was very clear on those powers and responsibilities and functions that will remain at the national level, and those ones that will be devolved to local governments. And that policy says that auditing will remain a national government function. So we have a general auditing commission. So Lofa County, Grand Chile County, they cannot have their own audit commission. No, the GSU will do that for them. Elections was not decentralized. It was not listed as something that can be decentralized. So these local governments can now conduct their own elections. Monetary policy, central banking related stuff, they cannot do that. Immigration, they cannot do that. The policy was also very clear that the judiciary was not going to be included in the devolution of function, because the judiciary is seen as an independent branch of government that delivers, that interprets the law and delivers justice services. So that will remain at the national level. So these counties cannot have their own Supreme Court. They don't have the authority to be able to do it. So that the local government, the decentralization and local government policy was the one that actually laid out the foundation for decentralization. And so around 2000, even before the policy was developed, there was this idea when Dr. Sawyer was at the Governance Commission. The push was to actually go full bloom with the election of all these local government officials. And when you read the policy, you will see it there. That county superintendents will be elected, district commissioners will be elected, the chiefs will be elected, everybody at the local level will be elected. But then there's a provision in the Constitution that lists the county superintendent as one position that will be appointed by the president. I think it's Article 51. So because of that, we could now go for full-blown election of these local government officials. So that's how they backpedal. And then around 2015, they decided to say, okay, if we cannot immediately pass a local government law because of some resistance in the legislature, let's move ahead with service deconcentration. So that's how they started these county service centers around 2015, 2016. The first one was Grand Bassa County. And then by 2017, all the county headquarters had the county service centers. And they brought in institutions to be able to devolve services. So that was deconcentration. By the way, there are stages of decentralization. You have deconcentration. The last mile is actually devolution, where you take responsibilities and devolve them to local governments. And then we have three forms. We have fiscal, which has to do with tax collection, budget, passing of budget. We have administrative, which has to do with the bureaucracy. And then we have political, which has to do with the election. So when that policy was developed, the local government law was then drafted around 2013. It went to parliament. Unfortunately, Madam Sali could not get it passed until she left. And then when President Weah became president in 2018, they passed the Local Government Act. So the Local Government Act is actually that law that provides the legal basis for decentralization in Liberia. So once that law was passed now, we do have local government. So the counties are local governments. In the law, there are three levels of government. We have counties, we have cities, four actually. We have counties, cities, we have boroughs, and then we have township. So districts are not local governments. They are only structures within the county. So we discuss the law further, but to just give you a background and context in how the local government law came, that's how it was passed in 2018. And it was basically passed to be able to ensure that we can promote participatory government to be able to enhance peace and stability in the country.
Thank you. Let me welcome Jimmy Eastman, who is our man in the nation's capital. I know tomorrow is 4th of July. And what a better time to have Jimmy on the show. And I always tell you, his name is synonymous to diplomacy in Liberia. Welcome, Jimmy.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. I really appreciate being here. Tom, I embrace this subject wholeheartedly because this is something we've been needing for some time. You know, I believe the structure of old was to reinforce power in Monrovia. But today, you know, we have a different, we have multi-party democracy, and it's about time that people can self-determine some of the things for themselves, each county. But I'm interested to hear what the law states exactly, and I know there's a process of doing this. And one, of course, you mentioned one of it is to work the legal framework under which this thing will happen. So there have to be some amendments. So after that, then we talk about capacity building. So I'm curious to hear what that law exactly allows.
And we'll go to that because the framework is there because the law was passed 2018, right? So the process now leading to it. But Tom, before we even get to that, I want you to, because we are coming from a centralized form of government going to decentralization. So just paint a picture of what it is like under centralization that is precipitating this decentralization, or for which we got to say, bingo, we want decentralization. What are the bottlenecks? What are the problems that decentralization is trying to solve?
Thank you very much, Dennis. So the two words are just opposite of each other. So centralization is when you bring everything to a particular location. So governments that are centralized, these are governments that make decisions from a central position. And if you go back to Liberia history, before independence, you could see that power was actually not at a particular location. So even at independence, you saw that a couple of counties had to come together to declare independence. So you see Grand Basso came, Monserrado, I think Grand Cape Mount, and one other county. And then you had the other people in the regions. Some of those regions were headed by kings and all of that. So once independence took place in 1847, power became concentrated in Monrovia. So decisions as to how the government would be run, decisions as to how the resources will be allocated.
Tom, when you say those countries had to declare independence, they were just added to the central government.
No. There were four counties that came together to declare independence. They were separate. So they came together, they declared independence, and they made Monrovia the capital of the country. And it became the center of...
Right. I mean, I was understanding you to say each county declaring independence.
No. What I was saying is these were sprinter groups. Even when the free slaves came, they were spread across the coast.
Right.
So even at independence, Maryland wasn't part of Liberia. They were separate because they came under a separate arrangement.
Right. You mean the independence of the country, which is the independence of the country consisting of 4 counties.
Yes. So that's how power became concentrated in Monrovia, because they said Monrovia is the political capital. So legislative power, the power to make decisions, everything became centralized in Monrovia. So that meant if you were even in Sino County and you wanted to buy a copybook sheet for the school that is there, somebody had to make that decision in Monrovia. Or they even had to buy the sheet in Monrovia and ship it to you in Sino County. So that was centralized kind of government. It did not create space for people to be able to participate in the allocation of the resources and in the use of the resources. And what centralization does is that it doesn't create a space for citizens to actually be able to get services that meet their taste. And this is where decentralization comes in. Under a decentralized system of government, you decentralize decision making in such a way that people at the local level are able to decide what exactly they need, and then their local government can be able to deliver it. And so when you go through the concept of decentralization in the literature, it says that local governments have advantages that central governments do not have. They have the advantage of information advantage. Because they are close to the people, they are able to get information from the people to be able to deliver service that meet the taste of the people because they are close to them. So they have that information advantage. Also, decentralization can improve accountability in such a way that because you are in Sino County and the superintendent is there, if the superintendent is doing something that you don't like, you are able to communicate and he's able to change course. So they have all of those advantages in terms of making sure that they can meet the taste of the citizens. So this is how countries started to shift away from a centralized system of government where decisions are made in a specific location to transfer those roles and responsibilities to local governments. Because local governments are closer to the people, it allows the people to participate. So let me give you an example. For instance, if you are having a party in Liberia, let's say a national event, and you decide to cook for everyone from the 15 counties, any soup that you cook, it will meet the taste of the people in specific location, geographic location, and it will not meet the taste of some people that come from specific locations. Say, for instance, if you cook palm butter, the Maryland people will enjoy it better than those who come from Lofa. Because in Lofa, they might like cassava leaf or they like.
And Tom, we're not trying to discuss decentralization and centralization, but because you are cooking in Monrovia, that's why the local people send Kupi to in Monrovia to say, okay, when the people cooking, just tell them that we in Lofa we like Tobogi. Then the
Yes.
people in Sino they send what a guy named Wea. Then the people in Lofa send the Oma. They say be there so that anything we want, so you represent us, so to make sure to put more soda there or less pepper. Right? And why we have these people?
Yes. But again, representative democracy does not mean that you cannot create other opportunities for citizens to be able to participate, right?
Okay.
Once you send Kupi to Monrovia now, he becomes very far off from the people who are in Kolahon district.
He start
right?
eating Tobogi now.
Yeah. Maybe eating fried rice in Monrovia, he gets used to it. So that's why you create these channels. Even though we have representative democracy, you create the channels for citizens to be able to participate because you need to provide services that actually suit their needs. So the central government is going to be there. There are authorities, there are representatives that represent these people at the central level, but yet you need to make sure that that governance can create channels at the local level such that people can be able to interact and make decisions. So just to complete that scenario, if you really want everybody to eat the food and benefit from it, maybe you say, Maryland people, why you want? Then they will say, we want palm butter. Nimba people, why you want? Then they will say, we want GB. So if you deliver the service in such a way that the people decided exactly what they want, you meet their taste. Better than when you decide in Monrovia and say, on a program, send a national program, we'll poke in Kasawali. So this is what decentralization does. It creates the space for people to be able to make decisions so that the services that are delivered to them can actually suit their need. So this is how countries move away from this centralized kind of decision-making and powers to allow local governments to participate where citizens can be able to make decisions on resource allocation. You give them the money, they decide what they want to do with it. It also helps them to be able to own development rather than just sitting and waiting for national government to do things for them.
So according to the literature, it said decentralization, the transfer of specific political, administrative, and fiscal and financial management powers and responsibility from central government to local government. Decentralization aims to move decision-making closer to the people who are most affected by the decision made.
Right.
So the cooking now is done in feasible instead of Douala.
Right. So decentralization like the definition you just brought up, is that transfer. So that's why I said earlier there are three forms. So we have we have fiscal decentralization, which has to do with money. We have administrative, which has to do with the structure of the bureaucracy. And then we have political. So political is more related to elections, where you elect local government officials. Fiscal is, do they have the power to levy their own taxes and collect the taxes? That's fiscal decentralization. Do they have the power to be able to do their own planning for development? So these are the three forms. But overall, in terms of definition, it's just to transfer that power and authority from the central government to units or subnational governments for them to be able to play these three roles, to exercise political power, fiscal power, and administrative powers.
One quick question for you, Tom. It is clear that it should ease administrative and financial burden on central authorities, but it also encourages grassroots democracy. And then those in Monrovia would be afraid because now you have more civic participation, and they'll be more responsive, and they will not want to give up that power to the people.
Right. And this is where we are going to get to it, but this is where the whole concept of amending the law is coming from. Because what the law did is to actually create those structures at the subnational level where participatory democracy is going to increase. Because when you go through the law and you look at the structures, it's so participatory in the sense that at the county level, you have county councils. Mm-hmm. And just to let you know that when you go to the policy, it's not actually called county council. Because like I said, the policy decided that the judiciary was not going to devolve its function. So it was the executive and the legislature that were going to devolve function to the subnational level. So if you go to the policy, you see county executive branch, and then you see the county legislative, they call the county legislative assembly. But then the lawmakers said, oh, that will confuse the people. We are already at the national level. We are called the legislative branch. You shouldn't give them that name at the subnational level. And this is all the political infighting came from. So in the law, it's actually called county council. But that goes to the point that you made, Jimmy. It actually does increase community level participatory governance, because there are structures in place for even the citizens to be able to hold the local government accountable and to be able to play a role in the governance of their communities, their districts, and their counties. So it does actually increase participatory governance. And just to conclude, one thing it does is that it creates the space for us to be able to groom leaders. Mm-hmm. Because somebody will be in their district council, maybe he's on a district advisory council, and he can play a role in decision making in such a way that he can grow from the district to the county, and then eventually he can become a national leader. So once we don't decentralize, we lose this kind of opportunity. Say, for instance, if we had decentralized and we allow the election of county superintendents from, let's say, 2007, 2008, 2009, Grand Bassa County, for instance, Liberty Party will have had an opportunity to produce a county superintendent, and you will really see all of the vision that Bronsky had. Maybe he will apply it to Grand Bassa County. Montserrat County will be a CDC maybe from 2005, 2006, a county that CDC could win. And they could really be able to govern for us to see what their governing philosophy is. Maybe Unity Party will have taken Lofa County. Prince Johnson Party will have taken Nimba County. So it gives that space for people to be able to experiment so that they can be able to move on. Like the current Prime Minister of India, he was the Chief Minister for Gujarat. It was because of the reforms that he did in Gujarat that raised him to the Prime Minister position of India right now. So it really does increase local governance and participatory governance.
Very good.
You call all the party when it came to MDRO, you said Prince Johnson Party. I know that was, you misspoke.
It wasn't MDR before. It was NUDP before it became.
Now it's MDR. So use that.
Yeah, MDR.
All right. So before So let's get to it, right? I want you to talk briefly about the county council and then what this proposed amendment is.
Right. Thank you very much. So when you go to the local government law, it's very comprehensive. Yeah. It does have some limitations that we'll talk about later on. But if you go to it, this is a fundamental change in terms of the governance structure that we had in place, moving from centralized to decentralized. So, like I said, the county is that primary level of local government below the national government. So you have the counties, you have the cities, and then you have the boroughs, and you have the townships. Then you have the districts that will not be counties, that will not be local governments. They cannot collect their own money. So the budget for the county will provide resources in that budget to go to the districts. But you have participatory processes at the district level. You have the district commissioner, and then you have the district advisory committee that have representation. So they will do their own development planning. They will develop a district development plan, like your district in Sano County can develop their own plan. Then those plans will feed into the county plan.
And Tom, when you say district now, this is not the electoral district.
No,
You're
it's not.
administrative district.
Yes,
Because
I'm talking
people
about.
in Liberia now they're so used to district number 2, district number 3.
No, it's not that.
That's the actual administrative district. Like my district in Sino is called Grepo district, but that is
Right.
part of electoral district number 2.
Right.
Just to
So
make
it's
that clarification.
yeah, it's not the electoral district, because the electoral districts, they are not even fixed.
Yeah.
Now our population has gone up. The legislature is even talking about creating additional districts. So when they create additional electoral districts, they will reconstitute the boundaries. So we're not talking about them.
Right.
The districts in the local government law are administrative districts.
Correct.
So they have their own structures. There is also a different kind of districts we have in Liberia called statutory districts.
Yeah.
Right? And we have a statutory district superintendents. But these statutory districts are actually overlaying the administrative districts.
Yeah.
So what the law did was that it dissolved statutory districts and gave them 7 years. So from 2018, 7 years on to after 2018, all statutory districts should be wiped out. They will no longer be existing. We only have administrative district. So in terms of the framework in the law, it does create these structures in place for services to be delivered, for decisions to be made. It does recognize the Council of Elders, that they will continue to play a role in terms of the traditional and cultural values that we have, to continue to uphold them. And then it gives some powers. Say, for instance, it allows the counties to be able to create departments, to create their own structures when functions are devolved to them. So Sino County, Maryland County, for instance, can create a Department of Education. Say eventually when primary education is devolved to counties, to say they will be responsible for primary education, building schools, providing supplies and teacher training and all of that, then they can create department. So all these frameworks are in the law. The law also provides on how they will generate revenue. They can collect taxes, they can levy their own taxes, and then they can do their own development planning. There's an entire chapter in the law on development planning. Also, they can now play a role in ensuring that the work that NGOs are doing in the counties align with their plans. The law also provides that they will do their own planning and develop their own county development plan. So the work that was done in 2024, where the national government actually went as part of developing the National Development Plan, which is the AARD, and develop 15 county development agenda, it goes counter to the law.
Right.
Because the law says the counties should actually develop these development plans, and then those development plans from the counties, from the people, will feed into the National Development Plan. So over time, we transition to that aspect. So in terms of what is in the law.
One question though, when it comes to revenue collection and generation, how will that, because there's some counties have greater resources and capacity than others. So how will that come about? How will, and that to me, that's the tricky part of this whole thing.
Yes.
And you earlier
It's a,
asked the question about capacity. So put that in there too, would the countries have the capacity to do all that you have stated? So just add that
Yeah.
as you answer Jimmy's question.
okay. So the law provides the administrative side of it. The superintendent is the chief administrative officer of the county.
Maybe
And
Jimmy
then they
will
have,
understand fully why I want to be superintendent of sign from this discussion.
Okay.
right. So the
Okay.
superintendent is the
Go
head,
ahead.
is the head of the local government, and then they have a county administrative officer. By the way, the law dissolved the law that was passed to create this assistant superintendent for development, assistant superintendent for fiscal affairs. So that's why when President Bouaka became president, he started to appoint county administrative officers and county finance officers because that's what the local government law provides for. So the structure is there. It gives the authority to the county superintendent to actually appoint the head of these departments when they get created. So that's the administrative side of it. The financial side of it, Jimmy, coming to your point, there are specific taxes and fees that the national government say you counties now have the authority to collect. So property taxes, the law says that property taxes will be a source of finance for local governments. But but it allowed the Liberia Revenue Authority to collect property taxes 10 years after the law was passed. So those 10 years were actually created for the LRA and the Ministry of Finance to be able to work with these counties to build their capacity
Okay.
before they eventually start to collect property taxes by themselves. And this is a global practice. Property taxes all over in many countries that are decentralized is collected by local government. So even the country that you are in the US, the property taxes are collected by your local governments,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
right?
Right.
So property taxes is a source of revenue for the counties and the local governments. They also allow them to be able to issue business licenses and fees, the business licenses and permits. So, for instance, all the people that are doing businesses in Grand Bassa County, the county
Right.
actually should be levying some fees for them to collect. Also, these properties that local government had, the administrative building, the sports pitch that they have, they can allow people to use it and they can collect revenue from it. So all of those sources of revenue are in the local government law. I think chapter 2. They call it
What about
finance.
income taxes?
No,
Income
no,
tax.
no. Income taxes are reserved at the national level. And the reason why that is done, Jimmy, is normally national governments don't want to give lucrative taxes to local governments. You know, there's a kind of you want them to be autonomous, but in some way they have to be dependent on the national one. So the reason why in many countries they don't give taxes like income taxes and to local governments is that if you allow them to do that and there is so much variation in terms of the level of taxes that they impose, it can affect economic activity. Because if Grand Bassa County, for instance, says that our income tax, let's say personal income tax, is 2%, and Lofa County says our own is 5%, people will move from Grand Bassa, people will move from Lofa to Grand Bassa because the tax there is what? Is low. And then it will affect economic activity. So that's why that's reserved at the national level. So the only sources of finance for local government are property taxes, business levies and fees. They can also collect fees from professional people like lawyers and doctors that are working. But the law says that before local governments can levy these taxes and collect them, the legislature has to transfer that power to them. So the legislature is supposed to take an action to actually transfer that power to them because in the constitution, the legislature is the only branch of government that can levy taxes. So they need to take an action, maybe through a resolution or whatever instrument, to transfer it to this local government. But since 2018, that has not happened. So in terms of financing, that's the way it works. So because these national taxes, the value-added tax that is coming, and then you have personal income tax, you have corporate taxes are collected by the national government on behalf of every other person in the country. Then you have something that is called intergovernmental transfer.
Mm-hmm.
That means the central government will collect all these big taxes, including customs, and then they will share it with local governments. So that's why in 2021, there was a revenue sharing law that was passed, which gives a formula as to how uh, revenue will be shared between the national government and the local government. So that means you, the mother, you will sit in moreover and collect all of these lucrative taxes. You only give them property taxes and fees and other things. Then you will share revenue with them. Once it's collected, then it will be shared. So in the Local Government Act, there's an institution called the Local Government Fiscal Board. So they will be set up to be able to advise the Ministry of Finance and the legislature on how these resources that will be transferred to the counties will be allocated. But to your point on endowment, that some counties are more endowed than the other, there is mechanism in the law to be able to address this. So there's a specific provision in the local government law that is called equalization fund. So if Greencool, for instance, does not have natural resources like Nimba, after all of the transfer resources are allocated, you can give specific resource envelope to Greencool and say, because you are poor and you don't have diamond, you don't have gold, or you don't have concessions, so we are giving you this money for us to equalize you with Nimba, with Lofa, and other places. So the law provides all of these channels. This is a very good law to make sure that we can develop Liberia, we can make it participatory, and we can ensure that every citizen really benefit from the development that is taking place in the country.
And Tom, for this to happen, and it's laid out in the local government act under that matrix, right? They call that the matrix of required constitutional amendments to sustain the LGA.
Right. So
Right. So if we must, the Constitution says this is the power of the legislature. So to be able to devolve that to local government, you have to amend the Constitution.
No. For that transfer, no, it doesn't require amendment of the local government law already established the local governments. So what the legislature needs to do is not that we are taking the power of levying taxes from the national government and devolving it to say, okay, the local governments will do it on your behalf. It's only specific fees and taxes that have been devolved to them. So the legislature will only say, okay, local governments, you now have the authority to be able to levy taxes. And this is coming back to the question that you asked, what is the function of the county council? So the county council in the law is like the representative.
But how would that not violate the Constitution? I mean, the Constitution is higher, right? So the legislature cannot make any law that will contravene the Constitution. So if the Constitution says you have to levy all the taxes, now the LGA is coming and say, county, you will levy some of the taxes, right? How is that not a conflict?
So this is why I said to you that our intent for decentralization is laid out in the policy. Right. The policy said that we are going to remain a unitary state.
Correct.
Right? But yet we will devolve some functions.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we devolve some functions to local governments to be able to increase participation of citizens, to improve the efficiency of service delivery. So right. That you are not violating the Constitution. The legislature is only saying, counties, you have specific roles and responsibilities that we want you to deliver. To deliver these roles and responsibilities, you can go ahead and levy property taxes. You can collect it. So we are not violating the Constitution, but there are specific provisions of the Constitution that we need to amend, for instance, to allow the election of local government officials. So for those things, there are constitutional amendments that need to take place. But this transfer for collection of fees and levy of property taxes, we're not actually violating the Constitution when the legislature does that.
Well, what I'm seeing here is under this matrix, it says Article 29, the legislative power of the Republic shall be vested in the legislature. Then the subsection says promulgate county ordinances, rules, and regulations for the promotion of peace, unity, blah, blah, blah. Then under 29, it says amend Article 29 to confer legislative powers on county and municipal council to promulgate ordinances, rules, and regulations to maintain public order, security, peace, unity, and social cohesion. So almost anything that you have to do, which already specified in the Constitution, you have to do some amendments. And those amendments have not been done yet. So how can we carry out the local government act without those amendments being complete?
Like I'm saying, before the Local Government Act was drafted, all of these research were done. This is why, for instance, when the law went to the parliament, it went with the provision of electing county superintendents.
Okay.
But they said no. In Article 51 of the Constitution, it says that the president can appoint ambassadors, and it lists the number of the different government positions that the president can appoint. And the county superintendents are included in there. So if you did not amend Article 51, you can now allow local governments to elect. But yet, we define the sphere of things in the policy that will allow local governments to be able to do. And if you allow in decentralization, when you give a responsibility to someone, then you have to allow them to be able to raise resources to be able to deliver that service. Because in the absence of raising the resource, they cannot deliver the service.
Exactly.
So that's why we say, okay, these other limited, because the national government, if you say they should go and collect fees for the renting of county administrative building, all of that, is not efficient. So since you are close to those structures at the local level, you can be able to do it. And the window there is that the legislature will just take an action, maybe through a resolution, to say the counties can be able to do that. Then you satisfy that requirement in the Constitution that says it is your responsibility. This is why they are saying, okay, we share it. So they are not transferring it. They are just sharing it with the local government to say, okay, yeah, you can now levy property taxes and collect them. You can collect fees. You have the authority to do it. We've given you our blessing to be able to do it. So even with the local government law passed, the counties cannot do it until the legislature transfer that authority to them.
Mm-hmm. But to Tom, we have one other systematic issue, and that is elite capture. The big shot then always find a way to monopolize the wealth in the country. How will we guarantee against that at the county level? Because I won't call nobody name yet, but the big people them, they always got a way of knowing what to do to get all the wealth of the country.
That's very critical. And Dennis, we'll get to the amendment. But the question Jimmy is asking is very important. When decentralization started, everybody, the concept behind it was that, okay, local governments will be much more efficient in terms of service delivery than people at the central level because of all those things that are listed, information advantage and all of that. But after some time, people realize that human being is just human being. Mm-hmm. So even when you just take power and send it to Banga then becomes the center of decision making. Mm-hmm. How about the other people in Sanoye? So it became a problem in the sense that when resources were sent to the subnational level, the efficiency with which people expected them to be allocated and utilized, it wasn't the case. That the same nature that is at the central level was also at the subnational level. So that's how decentralization became to focus on what? Transparency, accountability, developing frameworks to make sure that when the resources go, the citizens are aware. For instance, what countries do is that when resources are transferred to the central, to the local government, you put it in the newspaper. The Ministry of Finance, if transfers are made, they publish it in the newspaper to say, okay, we have sent this money to Maryland County, we have sent this amount to Sino County, so that the citizens get to know that the money has gone there. If you don't do that, the local government in Sino County will keep complaining to the people that the ministry has not sent the money, even though the money is there. So this is why transparency, accountability, and you set up these structures like the county council to make sure that the subnational authorities can also be held to account. So in decentralization, we have vertical accountability. That is that the local governments will be accountable to the national government. And that's why in our structure, we have the Ministry of Internal Affairs that is now being changed to the Ministry of Local Government to supervise all of these local governments. So that vertical accountability is there. And then you also have horizontal accountability. That's where the county councils come in, the citizens come in, so that the local governments can be accountable to them. And this is why when you have the election of local government officials, it actually strengthens that accountability, because if they don't do well, the people can kick them out.
So you're saying that we have to establish systems to monitor the performance of the decentralized institutions.
Definitely. And the law provides for that. The law states that, for instance, the Internal Audit Secretariat will create units at the subnational level, at the county level, at the city level, to make sure that any resource that is provided to the local governments, it is used in compliance with the existing law. So when it comes to procurement, they have to comply with the PPCC laws. When it comes to financial management, they have to comply with the public financial management law. If they violate it, the Internal Audit Secretariat will be there, the PPCC needs to be there, and all these agencies need to be there. The LACC needs to also be at the subnational level. And I think I read somewhere that they are starting to decentralize. I think they're creating their office in Bomi, and I think Bond County. So all these structures that are in place to ensure transparency and accountability, they will be at that local level to make sure that the money is not utilized based on the needs of these leaders that will do elite capture. Because elite capture is at the national level, it can also be at the subnational level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the basis of my question, right? Because the problem we face in Liberia today, or one of the problems, is mismanagement, corruption, lack of transparency, the rule of law, justice not being blind. That is happening right now as we speak. You talk about the PMF law, the PPCC law, and all these things have been violated left and right in Monrovia under the centralized system. If you decentralize it, so you are only moving from one big devil in Monrovia to 15 small devils around the country. Because what is it that we are not able to accomplish with holding people accountable in Monrovia under the central government that we can accomplish in, say, Riverside under the decentralized government?
All right. So, Dennis, the point you are making, there are two big reasons why people can normally argue against decentralization. One is corruption. When I was back in the country in 2023, I was
By
at
the time I finish from my mouth, that's the same question Jabate is asking. He said the
Yeah,
currency
so-
is centralized and being consumed by corruption at every level.
yeah, I'm coming there. So I was doing my capstone on a performance-based grant system. There are different mechanisms that you can use to be able to address these issues. So I was having interview and I was talking to one of the development partners, and they were also raising that issue. You know, when you decentralize, you are only decentralizing corruption. My argument against it is that if you say when we decentralize, we are decentralizing corruption, it means the center itself is already corrupt, right?
Yeah.
So once the center addresses corruption and you decentralize, it means you are not decentralizing corruption. So the center is the one to actually address that problem. We cannot sit in Monrovia and we are corrupt, then we use that justification to deny people services in Bapolu. To say, oh, when we allow Bapolu, we send money to them, they will take it and steal it because we are stealing in Monrovia. No, let's stop stealing in Monrovia. Then we don't use it as an excuse. The other big thing that people use is capacity. Oh, the people don't have capacity. When you decentralize, there is no capacity. The point is that capacity can be built. This is why the law provided all of these windows to say when we pass this law, in 5 years, like on the issue of taxation, in 5 years, the LRA needed to develop a plan on how they will build the capacity of local governments to be able to collect revenue when the responsibilities is turned over to them. 2018, the law was passed, but around 2023, the LRA should have developed that plan for the transfer of responsibilities, but we have still not done it. So it's like we sit in Monrovia and we do things that will further justify why we should not decentralize. And this is 170 years. The people in Bapolu, they don't participate in how our national resources are utilized. So I don't hold that argument for corruption. I don't hold the argument for capacity, because these are things that we can address. Much of the things that is happening in Monrovia now with firing people, referring to people to LACC for investigation. You can still do it at the subnational level. If anybody take one cent from the money that goes to the people in grain crew, you have the authority to be able to fire them, to take them to court, transfer them to the LACC. So we cannot use these two excuses to continue to hold on to a decision-making power in Monrovia.
And let me bring in one more, and I think you will say that's also an excuse, right? Extreme, or I want to say marginalization on the local level. Let's use Nimba, for instance, where Mittel Stew was used as just almost like a cash cow by the county elite. 2 senators, right? Just getting money, milking, and doing all that. At the same time, other and decentralization is not based upon regions or ethnic groups are marginalized because they are not plenty. And now we I don't know where that came from, where we look at county and we think of ethnic groups. And so this ethnic group is small, and so they get nothing. All the power here, when you think of this county, you think of this tribe and all that. How are you going to address that if that what local government people are doing when they are having election, in fact, is all tribal? When you're having anything, let's have since we have one senator from this tribe, this other ethnic group should have this, and all that is done on the county level. Wouldn't that increase?
Well, that will play when it comes to the political decentralization part of it.
Yeah.
Say when you say let's elect county superintendents. Democracy has its strengths and it has its own weaknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to election of county superintendents, there's a likelihood that dominant tribal groups, because our country, unfortunately, because of the level of education and all of that, the low empowerment of people, they make decisions based on these lineages, right? Tribes. So it's possible a superintendent will be elected by from a major tribe. But if you get back to the structure of the county council, for instance, you have representation, you have chiefs represented, you have women represented, you have youth represented, you have civil society represented. So those voices should be able to speak to avoid the marginalization of minorities. And this is something outside decentralization is a major issue normally in governance. You have to protect the right of what? Minority groups. So we expect that civil society that is at the council, that is part of the decision-making process in terms of how the counties will be able to allocate their resources. There's a representation of people with disability on the county council. They should all be able to raise their voice to address the limitation that will come through the political process in terms of these dominant tribal groups.
Let's quickly come to the crux of the matter for which we are here, which
Right.
is the proposed amendment.
Right.
Right. So, what is the proposed amendment, and what are the implications? How does it affect us?
Right. So, everything we've explained is to be able to give the context of what decentralization is and how it can be able to improve the welfare of people, their participation in governance, make sure they own their own development. So that's how the law was passed. And then the county council was created at the subnational level to be able to play that role of one, holding the county superintendent to account, and also making sure that it can be that branch of local government to levy taxes, to levy these fees, and they can also pass ordinances, like you were reading, for peace and stability in the county. What this proposed amendment from Representative Jeremiah Sokan of Grand Judea County is proposing is that they should essentially take the power of passing the budget, because the counties now have the authority to develop their own budget and pass their own budget based on resources that they will collect, based on the transfer that will come from national government. They will develop their own budget. So Lofa County will have their own budget. Grand Bassa County will have their own budget. They will also develop their own they will also develop their own county development plans. Like I said, with time, they will have to take over from national government to fund their own county development plan. So once that county development plan is developed, it is adopted and passed by the county caucus, the county council. Then the budget also on an annual basis, it will be passed by the county council. What Representative Sokan is suggesting is that those functions should be taken away from the county council and given to the county caucuses so that they can leave Monrovia and go past the budget in Grand True. They can leave Monrovia and go past the budget in Bapolu. And the implications of that is that it will have put us back. This is an investment of over 10 years since 2003, 2004, 5, 6. And let me also highlight that development partners have played a major role in trying to support us reach to where we are. Millions of dollars have gone into the development and passing of the Local Government Act. The first project that was developed on decentralization in Liberia was called local government. It was called LDLD. I think local decentralization. I'm forgetting the acronym. It was supported by UNDP. So they had to refurbish this county administrative building. You see that all the old counties in Liberia have the county administrative building that was built by Tobo regime, and then from Topman to Tobo. Only the new counties don't have. So UNDP invested heavily in bringing them up. And then once LDLD ended, they brought the LDSP, the Liberia Decentralization Support Program. It was around 20.
It was the Liberia Decentralization
Support Program. It was funded by UNDP, USAID, the European Union, the Swedish Embassy. It was initially 24 million. After some time, it came down to 18 million. So it was that project that actually supported the construction of county service centers in counties that never had a county administrative building. So a lot of money has gone into actually supporting Liberia to get to where we are. So those projects supported the development of the decentralization policy, the development of the local government law, they built these county service centers and all of that. And then around 2015, USAID had their own project that was implemented in Bong, Nimba, and Grand Jide counties. So after all of that investment that we have done, we've passed the law. We are preparing to implement the law. Then somebody says, let's destroy whatever we have put together. It's like you are building a house, you build a foundation, you reach the wall height, you put the zinc over it, you're just trying to put the ceiling up for people to start renting the building. Then somebody say, I want to break the wall. The building will crumble.
And Tom, you can do that, right? If it is not right, there's no need to. So let's take some time and understand what the honorable representative is proposing, right? You can build something and almost at roof level, and you find out that something is not right. You can go and tear it down.
If it compromises the structure, the foundation.
If it compromise something, you can. But so what I'm saying is you can do that. So let's understand. So before this time, the way budgets are, passed in Monrovia is the ministries come up with those budgets, submitted to
finance.
Submitted the legislature to the president, the Senate, the legislature go through it, pass it and send it to the president, right? Now you're saying the honor LGA, the county is going to do that. I want you to lay out how is that going to happen first, so we can understand.
Okay, so before 2018, we never had local governments in Liberia.
Yeah.
These counties were administrative structures of the central government.
Yeah.
So they had no authority to develop their own budget. Everywhere they were run was based on what the national government wanted them to do because they were basically subunits.
Right.
But when we passed the Local Government Act, we actually established local governments. So Sino, Lofa, Grand Jide, River G, they are actually local governments since 2018.
So before 2018, the money they got would be the money they put in the budget, like that 2,000 that President Salih was giving. 200,000.
So let me explain that.
Yeah.
When they were working on the development of the law, on the development of the policy until 2018, And then they were developing the law. What former President Salif and the team decided was that we cannot say that we have to develop the policy, we develop the law before we actually start to send resources down to the county for them to address some basic things that they want to do. Say the county administrative building was leaking. Let's give them some money to be able to address some of these basic problems until we can go through the legal process to establish local governments. So that's how the County Development Fund started in 2006. The first amount that was put into the budget in 2007 was 66,000 per county. And then there was this major criticism across the country that, that money was too small, so to increase it to 200,000. So that was something that was done to be able to lay the foundation for eventual decentralization. So because they were not local governments, they did not have the authority to develop their own budgets, to pass their own budget. That's how the county caucuses were drawn into it. And this is where the problem is coming from.
Right.
That was before the law was passed.
Because that could have been the superintendent, but then they brought county caucus in it.
And this is all of the problem, like I'm saying to you, the way the law went to the parliament, it never came out that way. So the county caucuses managed to find their way into that decision-making process. And then what the government did was to develop some procedures on how the county, the county sittings will be held. Can you imagine that the county sittings could only be called by the county caucuses, right? So even the superintendent came to the county sitting as an invitee, invited by the lawmakers. So they went down to the county level, they called the county sitting, and then they decided on how those resources will be allocated. They will bring representatives from districts and other things. And out of that county council will come a resolution. And that resolution will state how the 200,000 will be utilized. That resolution will then be sent to the Ministry of Finance. Once the resolution goes to the Ministry of Finance, signed by all of these delegates that came with the lawmakers, then it will be approved. So this is how the national lawmakers got involved with the allocation of resources at the subnational level. But that was happening because the local governments had not been established. Okay. Once you establish the local governments now, you take the responsibilities and transfer it to them. So it's almost like Dennis. You were born, you grew up in your father's household. When you turn 18 and you marry your own wife, that your father come and tell you again, you and your wife, which soup you should cook? No, your father gets all of it. So once the local government law was passed, the lawmakers at the national level stepped back and said, now we have local governments, they should take on these responsibilities. And I tell you a story, very interesting. I
got one story too.
Right. I follow every instance of decentralization in Liberia. When this new administration came to power, they gathered all of these local government officials and took them to Ganta.
Yeah.
And they were having orientation for them. The current vice president was there. The Senator Moi from Bon County was there. And so when I think the vice president was given a role to speak. And so when he came, he said, when Madam Salif brought the Local Government Act, we look at it and say, when we allow these county superintendents to be elected, maybe they will stand up to us and all of that. And he said one of the fear they had was that why if you go to election and the county superintendent get more vote than you, the senator, you don't think that man come stand up to you and say, I got more vote, maybe you and myself will equal. But that will not happen because when you do decentralization and you do it right, you create a demarcation between local governments and national governments, and you clarify their functions and say, you local government, this is your function and this is your responsibility, and your limit is the boundary of Nimba County. So there is no elected county superintendent that will leave for Nimba County and can challenge a national lawmaker and say, because I got more vote than you do, because you are at different levels. And then when Senator Moi was speaking, he said, initially we were opposing this thing, but at a certain time we realized that it's to our own benefit. Because it's like we are taking these responsibilities now and passing over to local governments So even the lawmakers, all they're passing around, they're doing to build hand pumps and do other things, just send the money to the local government and they will take on these responsibilities. So because in the absence of the law, the county caucuses were involved in the county settings that decided how the local government resources will be utilized, which included the county development fund and the social development fund for counties that have these concessions. That is exactly what Representative Sokan is suggesting in this amendment. That even though we created the local governments and we gave them the authority to do these things, let's take it back from them and re-centralize it.
And before you even delve into it, let me give you an example, right? Because the fear some of these senators, representatives are is if this superintendent becomes popular, if this superintendent becomes stronger, they will leave their superintendent job and can't run for Senate because the people know them and they got more people behind them. So let us not give them all that power, they thought. It happened in Sano County where Senator TJ was superintendent. So it became people knew him, and then his next step was let me go and bring and take down Mobutu, who is a senator. So that's one of the fear. Just recently, the superintendent of Bond County, who I managed to know, they went to dedicate a bridge. They went there, and then they one of the representatives went there and said, how the president send you in my district without telling me? So let's cancel the dedication of the bridge, go home, and we arrange it another time. So that in other words, so that I can show my power. This is and the superintendent, who is like the president of the county, has to submit to someone who just controls a district. He say, you're in my district, so you can't do anything here without my knowledge.
Yeah, and I also listened to that video. And you know the interesting point that Representative Cole made in that video? The superintendent said, oh, when we're doing this thing, we wrote the county caucus. He said, no, don't write the county caucus. You have to write me as an individual because the county caucus is a birthday club. That was the point that he made. So it is this structure that Representative Sokan is suggesting that should take that responsibility of passing budget and passing county development plans to be given to them. And even the representatives themselves are saying it's just a birthday club. And there is actually no legal provision for county caucuses. It's just an arrangement among themselves. They get elected from the counties, and then they say we come together as a caucus because we all come from the county. So why should the local government responsibilities be taken and given to the county caucus to go and pass the budget? And when you do that, then you destroy all of the benefits of decentralization that will be discussed in terms of citizens' participation, because they don't have that information advantage to really know what are the needs of the citizens at that local level. So it's like you are reversing. If the amendment goes through, you are reversing all the progress that we have made with decentralization. And the critical thing is that, Dennis, essentially what this representative is suggesting is that the people in the county, they don't have the capacity to decide what they want.
And how is he proposing that is this going to be done? This caucus, how is it? What would the process look like?
What they want to do is to amend certain portion of the law that gives those responsibilities to the county council. Like I said, the county council is a representative of it's a mirror image of the legislature at the county level. So essentially what he's suggesting is that dissolve the county council and the functions that they have, give it to us. And for instance, the county council does not only have the responsibility to pass the budget and to adopt the county development plan. They also have the responsibility to levy taxes, to pass ordinances. So are you saying, Representative Sokan, that you want to take all of these functions and bring it back to you at the national level? How then do you function effectively at the national level and also at the subnational level?
And I'm trying to imagine, right? Let's say they created the budget in Sano County. It means our our 3 + 2 5 legislator will go there and ask the people what you want, and then they sit in a meeting that will be presided over by these representatives of how really they intend to do it.
It is not practically possible. So
It doesn't make any sense.
away from all of the principles that we've discussed, participation, accountability, inclusion, because look at the composition of the county council, right? They have somebody with disability represented. They have somebody from the youth represented, women represented, chiefs represented. The reason why it is structured that way, so that any decision that is made on how the money will be allocated in the county budget, all of these people should bring their voices to the table.
Exactly.
If you are building, for instance, a school, the disability person on that committee will say, if you build a school with our money that belongs to all of us, you have to build a ramp so that when I sit in the wheelchair or the children that are sitting in the wheelchair, they can be able to access the classroom. If you are building public toilets with our money, you have to make sure that you build a specific room for people with disabilities so that we can be able to go there. What the representative is suggesting that all the voices of these people don't matter. We will decide for them what they want. And here is the other issue, the point you were raising, Dennis. The law says that the local governments will follow the financial year of the national government. Our fiscal year used to run from July to June, but we changed now to January to December to align with the entire West Africa in the ECOWAS sub-region. So that means once the national government budget year is starting on January 1, the local government's budget year should also start on January 1. So, like you are saying, the people inside are supposed to pass their budget so that January 1 they can start implementation. The national government also needs to pass their budget so that they can start implementation on January 1. Where will these representatives be? Will they be in the county to make sure the county budget is passed, or they will be in Monrovia to make sure the national budget is passed?
I think what they're going to do, they're going to stay in the center, tie rope on their waist, like spider, and say when the national budget can't just shake when they, you remember the spider story. So the question is, and I want our people to weigh in now. If you are watching us, should national lawmakers formulate and control the county budgets? Should that formulating that county budget, should it be their function according to the proposed amendment? What do you think? We want you to weigh in, and we want also, if you are watching us, to call the number on the screen. For those in the diaspora, call 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. For those in Liberia, you have our local numbers, and we'll call George to announce the local numbers. George, when you are ready, let's go.
Okay, so if you are following us this evening on Care Radio, let me take the first caller on this line. Good evening. Hello, caller. Oh, we lost it there. 077-959-959-0881-871-670. The numbers to call is 077-959-959-0881-871-670. Let me take my first caller on this line. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, your name, where you calling from?
Brother John, one of the visually impaired, I call on Gaba.
Oh, winning. Good evening, my brother.
Yeah,
Welcome to the
What's the name?
Yeah, thank God
John.
for the topic on discussion.
Yeah, John. Welcome.
For the season that for all superintendent to be elected, if the superintendent be elected, even the city mayor, all of them should be elected as Alabama. There are no local mayor with their control in that. As long as they are not elected, go that use them, because what use them as a tool. Well, anything that their bosses say, yeah, they will go back. But if they are elected, they'll know how to run the country the rightful way. And also, I was thinking my other suggestion, we have 15 counties. The 15 counties, this country, all the lawmakers should lead because they have section and raise money for the resources that will be in the country. They raise resources from the country. They put it in the budget. Then, where the salary from, you see, all the company,
The line is bad.
Yeah. Join, please, the line is back. Can you please change your location? Good evening. Yes, my brother. Your name, where you calling from?
Yes, thank you. So kindly, Michael, go to the
Marco? Okay, Marco, welcome to the program.
So, the conversation relating to all lawmakers, for me, I just want this straightforward. That's what I county.
Yeah.
Those lawmakers, they are not in the interest of the ordinary people. Definitely. Your responsibility is to go and make policy in the interest of your constituency. Leave local leaders, let them do what they can do for the local people. Why will you move away capital building and say you want the information of county?
Yeah.
And if I'm a decision, suddenly you will be the decision. You are going to influence the decision. Some of us will condemn. Not the amendment will still do to come and it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Thank you.
Okay, my brother, that is the call on this line. Good evening. Oh, good evening. Hello, caller.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, my brother. Your name, where you calling from?
My name is Mr. Boa and I call from the Philippines.
Who?
Mr. Boa,
Oh.
from the
Oh, welcome to the program, Mr. Power.
Oh, thanks a lot for the discussion of this time of the day. That's a lot.
George, the line is not clear. Is it from you or from the caller?
It's on the caller. You hear the caller now?
It's bad.
I think change your location a little bit, my brother.
No, but not just him. Everybody.
Everybody calling it, the call is not clear. Is it clear to you, George?
Yeah, it's clear from my end. You hear the caller too from your end?
It's not clear to us. We want it to be very clear.
You hear Mr. Dennis?
No, the issue is not whether you can hear me. I want to hear him.
Yes, I'm saying
Yes,
the topic of discussion this evening.
Yes, just hold on a little bit.
For me,
Just hold on a little bit.
for me,
Mr. Power,
for me,
yes.
I'm sitting with people because I invited them. Last week I was pushing it away. Not last week, this weekend, yes. Some we are pushing it away. I encourage them to listen too. They are listening now. We appreciate your panelists for the discussion, both especially giving the pros and cons, the positive and aspects of the local government act. Our lawmakers just want to do everything to themselves, and I don't think it is necessary for this nation for us to progress and foster national development. I think the local people should be included in the decision-making process of the nation. If we bring the decision-making process to those of the people or the citizenry, I think everyone will be for a great plan for employment, a great plan for us to understand in depth why it to be official message.
Am I clear now, Mr. Dennis?
Yeah, we can hear. We're trying.
Make it to be their own party. I don't think it's necessary. Thank you for having me on too.
Thank
Okay, my
you.
brother. Let's just hold you that good.
George, you got to improve your line, man. We want to hear the caller.
Yes, you hear the caller. Okay, talk to the callers. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. We don't expect for you to be specific.
Okay, Williams, just hold on a little bit. Can you hear Mr. Dennis? Can you hear the guys in the States?
No, George.
It's okay.
Okay.
George,
Yeah, Mr. Dennis?
George, let's be clear. We got to hear them, right? We are not hearing them clearly.
Let it man go on, George.
Okay. Please. Yes. Okay. We lost you there. If you call, please just lower your window a little bit and change your location. That's
You know why we're waiting for the callers. One point I want to talk to Tom about Tom. First of all, I think we must admit that the main goal is to understand the real problems of the county or the community, and get from the perspective of the local people. This is the only way we will really be able to address the problems. So just what you said, the way people have typically do that, they have what they call focus groups, household groups, community mapping, town hall meeting. Let them discuss among themselves what they really need, you know, and by identifying, then the analysts can go do their SWOT analysis or what the 5 whys, whatever kind of analytical tool they got to go deep inside the issues that they bring, to make sure they diagnose the issues completely. Then they can have proper way of treating it, because they would have the issue would have been identified by the local people and analyzed by the people, scientifically analyzed by the people who, you know, have the tools required to go deep into the problem and understand it.
Definitely. And you know, normally for countries that are decentralized, one of the things that accompany this whole issue of devolving authority for local governments to develop their own budget and manage their own resources is something called participatory budgeting, which was introduced by Brazil in 1987. And participatory budgeting actually is something that is done at the local level. So it's exactly what you are saying. Before that decision is made in terms of the development of the budget, Bon County, for instance, should talk to the citizens across the different districts. And they will be able to do that because they are close to them. They are right in Banga. So even if they call for a meeting, the people don't have to come all the way to Monrovia. They can sit right there. So you have these consultations with them, which is the participatory budgeting process. Let them identify the project that they want to implement. And then the resources will be allocated in the budget for that implementation. And the thing is that when they themselves identify the project, they take ownership of that project because they need it. And if the project does not go ahead, they hold those people accountable because they came to a meeting, they said they were going to build a clinic. Why is the clinic not being built? But when you decide all the way in Monrovia, you say you go and build a clinic for them, they will just be passing by you, they go on their farm. Because they weren't they weren't part of that process.
Right.
They still see it as something that, oh, the Moreover people doing this thing.
Yeah.
So that you take that responsibility, you turn it over to them, let they themselves decide. They will own the development, they will be part of the process, and then that's the way it will address the issue of the needs, it will address accountability, and then you can move forward. The other thing I will mention quickly is that one of the disadvantages of bringing these national lawmakers under the umbrella of the county caucus is that let's not forget that these people are elected from different political parties. There have been instances where we see that county caucuses have split among themselves.
Sino is example.
Yes, so they get elected, they come to Monrovia, but there is so much of a divide among themselves, even to come together to form a county caucus, sometimes it can be difficult. So we have seen examples in some counties because of that problem among the members, the county setting does not even take place. In Bapolu, I think it took almost 2-3 years. The money was laying down because they could not meet, the money could not be allocated, and it could not be utilized. So
no need for them to be in there.
Right.
They are lawmakers. That's what they should focus on, making laws, not county development. That should be done by the local people.
Right. So that would be one disadvantage of bringing that decision-making process back to the national level. One, they are based in Monrovia. They don't have the time to go back.
No.
Two, because of the configuration of that unit, if there is any problem among themselves and they cannot make decision, it will affect the local people. They will not get services. The money will be there and nothing will go on.
Yeah.
George, you can join anytime. You can call in anytime if there's a caller. But Tom, I know Focus on Labrador is doing a tremendous job. I mean, what is the government doing to explain this to the people? Because for democracy to work and function properly, people have to be informed. They have to be educated on these things. Other than that, I mean, so to what extent, I know you're not speaking for it, but based on what you know, what is the government doing to tell people about decentralization, about the Local Government Act, how the timeline as to its implementation, all the 9 years? Do you know?
I mean, to be very frank with you, Much of the work on decentralization has been driven by donor agencies. So almost all of the awareness that was created on decentralization was done under LDSP through the project resources. And then when the USAID project legit was there, it was also supporting. So you see that in many instances, it is the citizens or the civil society organizations funded by donor resources that are doing the awareness creation.
So,
That's why.
Tom, are you telling us this is not part of the national agenda of this administration?
No, it is. This administration is doing, yeah, they're doing work,
Little
but
bit.
yeah, but if you check the budget of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, for instance, they don't have all the resources they need to carry on this national awareness creation. So they do have these different annual events. They do have engagements sometimes with local government authorities. Under LDSP, there was a special radio program where ministry people could go and explain the decentralization process and all of that. So there's been awareness that has been created, but most of it is actually created by civil society organizations. I know NIMOT does a lot of work on the data fact sheet on the local government law and all of that. So there's awareness being created. And to be very frank with you, when we work on this for 6 years, some of the frustration that we used to have was that the citizens themselves, you could not really see them standing up. So now, for instance, this lawmaker has submitted this bill to amend the Local Government Act to essentially destroy what has been put in place. The citizens themselves need to stand up, right?
But they don't know, Tom.
Right.
What do you mean stand up?
They're supposed to resist. They're supposed to say no. They're supposed to call their lawmakers and say, when you pass that law, we'll vote you out.
But
They're supposed
Tom,
to do it.
Tom,
But let me just complete.
no, I mean, a lot of people, I myself didn't know until you brought it to my attention.
Yeah, because for me,
Because you follow it. So how many people really they are aware that this is what the legislators are doing? We saw how they passed the NPA, the seaport management stuff, right? So how many people know about this? If government is not being intentional about promoting it.
yeah, like I said, not much. I mean, in 2021, with the support of the USAID project, there was a 10-year implementation plan that was developed on how the Local Government Act can be implemented. And the first activity that was in there was awareness. You needed people to be aware about what decentralization is. And if you go down to the counties, the only thing that people know about decentralization is the county service center. Once you say, oh, you see the county service center over there, that's a sample of decent. Then they say, okay, we'll go over there, we'll get birth certificate instead of going to Monrovia. That's what they know.
That's all they know.
Right. But all of the intricacies about they will start paying taxes, they will start paying fees and all of that, there has been some awareness created. I mean, so that's why you see much of the resistance even to this proposed amendment is coming from civil society, the National Civil Society Council, and then NIMOT and some other civil society. All of them are issuing press statements to say, no, don't do that. This is something we have invested in. All right. And then in 2021, they set up the county councils. So they also have their national union, a national association of these county council members. They also issue a statement. So people are generally aware, but the average citizen deep in the village who is meant to benefit from decentralization, in some instances, the awareness has not reached them. So we still have a gap in terms of awareness.
But that is because of the implementation plan. You have to devise a feasible implementation plan. For instance, if you wanted to get to the level of everybody, you call the chiefs then first. You inform them about the whole intent of the decentralization program. Then you send a representative with them to explain to their constituency in a language that they will understand. You know, we don't need nobody to speak a whole lot of book and that people don't understand. If you even got to break it down in the dialect, then you explain it in the dialect. So they have a grip on it. You know, we're not every time we have to be using English if it's not the thing we need. Let them understand it fully. And it's not hard to do because our people are intelligent. But you have to break it down to the level that they will hear it and understand it. And so it's all about implementation, Tom. That's where the rubber always meets the road.
Right. Yeah, there have been, I mean, this is over almost 1 or 2 decades. There's been some awareness that has been created. People know about it, but we need to do much more work to be able to really make sure that the people in the last mile, they can be able to get it, because it's all about them. It's about
Right.
people out there. Why are we devolving? We are devolving so that they can be part of decision making process. So they need to be aware. So, like I said, there has been some work done on the awareness creation, and we just need to take additional steps to make sure that it's widely, especially if we want to start implementing it now.
Yeah.
People cannot implement anything if they don't know about it.
I agree. Gotta know.
I like your optimism, but like I said, when it came to even the reburial or the memorialization of our late presidents, right? If the government is not actually in the forefront of explaining what they are doing and how to bring the citizen along, these things are difficult, because that's why the president has the bullet puppet. So, for instance, decentralization, which you already started, you have Ministry of Local Government now, and these things they should factor in your overall agenda, right? Let's say we have the arrest agenda or AD. We have that agenda. Okay, all these things should be component, and you should explain it. But most of the time, when we hear about EFBC or we hear about MICAT or we hear about Lena, all they are doing is to explain political stuff, to defend political things. Oh, the president fired this person, the president break in this person. But things that will benefit, the almost what public radio is doing here, we don't see it.
To the credit of the president, when he made his inauguration speech, if you go to the inauguration speech, there's a line in there.
Yeah,
He
that
made
was 10
reference
years ago.
yeah, to no, that's not 10 years. I'm talking about
No,
President
yeah,
President President Boaka, right? So
Yeah.
when he made his inauguration speech, in his first State of the Nation address, he made also reference to decentralization, and that's how he even prioritized the creation of the Ministry of Local Government to
since then,
to transition the Ministry of Internal Affairs to the Ministry of Local Government. And the reason why that transition is taking place, because the function of that ministry now, because of the local governments that have been created, it has evolved. So, for instance, in the Ministry of Internal Affairs, we had a deputy minister for operations. And that deputy minister for operation was there to make sure that the counties get their fuel for operation, they get their stationaries and everything. Because, like I said, before the local government law was passed, these counties were just administrative units of the central government. So somebody had to administer their operational functions on their behalf. Under the Ministry of Local Government now, there is no deputy minister for operation, because the resources will be transferred to the counties. They will collect their own revenue. They will do their own budget. So nobody's supposed to be buying shit for them. Nobody's supposed to be buying fuel for them. So this president has been consistently pushing the issue of decentralization. And this is why I do think that the executive branch of the government that is actually pushing decentralization, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, they're supposed to tell the representatives that what you are doing is undercutting exactly where we intend to go as a country. Because one of the critical things that is important for decentralization, especially on the fiscal side, it has a way of supporting national government domestic resource mobilization efforts. Because if the local government start to collect these little fees, that's money that they are collecting. It will help to increase the national envelope in terms of the revenue that we are collecting. It will also be important because much of the problem we face with domestic resource mobilization when it comes to taxation, we say, okay, there is so much informal sector. People are doing businesses in the counties where the LRA is not able to track them. When you ask the local governments to be able to issue these fees and licenses, because those businesses are close to them in Grand Pool, they will capture all of them. So the LRA can now use that information that is collected by the counties to really be able to go into the data and say, okay, You wouldn't know that you were existing, but you are a business, you are employable. They can get to you. So what the lawmakers want to do, if you destroy the county council that's supposed to be levying these local government fees and taxes and all of that, it affects domestic resource mobilization. So it's not only the issue of the passing the budget and passing the development plan, it will affect our revenue generation in the country. So I would think the president, the minister of finance, the minister of internal affairs, they all supposed to tell the lawmakers that this is going to reverse the process that we are moving on to be able to improve governance and democratic participation.
And I recognize, what the president, good step. I'm just saying people should talk about it. That's why we have EFBC. That's why we have MICAT and these people. And you what we are doing now,
it's what they should be doing.
Yeah. And our time is up on Kia Radio in 1 minute. George, do we have any more callers?
No calls yet.
All right.
So just maybe before we go off on radio.
No, we'll not go off. George will go off, but we'll be here to
Radio.
complete
But yeah, I just wanted to summarize. Let's call on all the people, those listening, those in the counties. Please call your lawmakers and ask them not to go ahead with this proposed amendment. The country is over 170 years old. The people in Bapolo, in Lofa, in Bomi, they have never had this opportunity to be able to participate in the allocation of resources to satisfy their needs. The local government law is the only instrument that provides that opportunity for them. Let's not take that chance that was given to them. Let's allow people to be able to decide what they want and use their resources at the subnational level. So all the citizens, civil society has already started. Call your lawmakers and tell them not to do it. And to the lawmakers that want to do that, even if you bring it to the national level, you change the law, you will not be representative forever. Once after 6 years, they take you from there, you will not pass that budget again. So what is the essence? You have a national responsibility. I think they should focus on their national responsibilities.
Exactly so.
And be able to leave that little with the counties to move ahead with this. So the citizens, please do not say, in addition to calling on the radio, call your lawmakers and tell them that our law that Representative Soka is suggesting, please do not be part of passing it. Don't do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And again, we want to encourage everyone to know more. Let's participate in these discussions. Today, right now, the program we are having, a lot of people, that normally listen to this program on the internet, they are not so interested in program like this, right? Because the one that it explains is educational. People are always in the now. So we are encouraging, both the local people and even people in the diaspora, let's take interest in doing these things because each of us, we have a stake. So if you call somebody, you can call your family member and say, do you know this is going on? Do you know this is what they are trying to do? Do you understand the local government and how it benefits everybody? And let's be the people to talk about it to our own families and loved ones, even as we talk to them on the phone. For once, take interest in things outside of the local breaking news.
And back to the point you were making earlier, Dennis, the government needs to take this as a project, right? So a few weeks ago, the Ministry of Information launched this thing they call the town hall, that they will be going to different locations in the country. I think the first edition was held at the ministerial complex. That's the kind of platform that you need to use to be able to engage the citizens on this whole issue of what? Decentralization. Because one of the critical parts of decentralization is local government revenue generation. Do the people know that the local government law provides that there will be fees that will be paid at the county level, and that those resources will stay at the county level? Property taxes, for instance, the law provides that it's exclusively for what? Local governments. That means when you pay your property tax in Sino and Maryland, it's not coming to it shouldn't come to the national government.
Just imagine how much Mangibi is going to get.
Right. It shouldn't come to the national government. It stays there for them to deliver services to you. So we need to educate the people so that they can get on board to be able to move this process forward. So this town hall issue that the ministry launched, the Ministry of Information launched, the Ministry of Internal Affairs or the Ministry of Local Government can partner with them to really be able that they can do massive awareness on decentralization. Also, the context of aid. Now, the free money we're getting is not there again. We have to fund our own development. And that's where local governments can be able, the little cent that they will be able to collect, it can help the national government with service delivery.
And let me talk a little more, and maybe some people would think I'm making my own page for superintendent, right? But that's why most people, when they talk, they say, "Oh, let's elect superintendents." Yet, while that is good, but even the appointment, the people that are appointed as superintendent, they should be strong, because really, what happened with the caucus coming and just in Labrador, we say eating over their head, because most of the people are like the one they have for Sino County during the Weir administration. I mean, these are some of these people basically cannot read and write to high school level, and so they are so beholden to the county legislative caucus. They can't even stand in front of them to even talk. So whatever they say goes, and that has been a problem. If we have qualified and competent people running these counties, maybe just maybe they are able to conscientize or be able to get to the people and really explain these things to them and move them along so that they can act on their own behalf. That this is what we're trying to do and is in your favor. But if you don't know, you are waiting for the county legislative caucus who want to take everything in the county. They want to be able to administer scholarship form. They should, before you get to a bridge, you should call them. If there is a mining company in this, they should be there. So it takes a strong superintendent or a competent superintendent to be able to, I don't want to say go toe to toe with them, but at least talk to them as colleagues. Tom, you wanted to say something to that?
Yes, that's a very critical point that you are making. So one of the limitations of the Local Government Act, and like I said earlier, there are weaknesses of the Local Government Act, but the County Council is not one of it. The County Council is an advantage of the Local Government Act. The major limitation of the Local Government Act is that it doesn't specify the functions and the responsibilities of the counties. The way decentralization works all over the world is that you start with functions. When you want to decentralize, you first ask yourself, what is it that I want these local governments to do as a country? So that's why in the policy, it clearly states those functions that will not be devolved to local governments, right? Elections, monetary policy, auditing, and national defense, immigration will say, no, we are not going to devolve those ones. But anything that is not listed in that policy, education can be what? Devolved to the counties. Education, health, maybe even cleaning of drainages. Can you imagine even to clean drainages in Monrovia that in the cities that Ministry of Public were doing it? So what you do is that you take all of the functions of the different ministries and sectors and say, among these functions that the Ministry of Commerce is delivering, what is it that we can take and give to the local governments? So we say inspection of goods, for instance. We take that function from the Ministry of Commerce, we give it to the local government. We go to the Ministry of Education. We say primary education, for instance, we take it and give it to local governments. So when you take all of those functions and give it to the local governments, then you ask yourself the question as to how much resources do they need to be able to deliver these services? Then that's where you assign tax collection responsibility to them. So the beginning point for decentralization is expenditure assignment. And expenditure assignment is what is it that local governments will do? Then you come to revenue assignment. Say, this is what we want them to do. This is how they will collect money to be able to deliver the service. But in many instances, the responsibilities that are given to local governments cannot be covered by the taxes that they collect because the taxes that are given to them are limited in scope. So that's how revenue sharing can come. Government can transfer money to them. So if you actually devolve functions to the counties, clear, then the point of competent superintendents will come there. Because let's say you take education, you give it to Nima County. You're going to appoint a superintendent that cannot read and write to go preside over the delivery of education to your future generation. You're not going to do it. So the limitation of the law is that it doesn't have expenditure assignment. And that problem came from the legislature. Because when the law was submitted to them, the GC did all of that. They went across all of the sectors and categorized what are the functions and responsibilities that were going to go to the local government. And it made the law so long, multiple pages, over 50 pages. When it went to the legislature, they say it was too long. They should reduce it. So they ended up cutting that portion from there. So we now have the law, but it's not really clear in terms of functions what these local governments can do. So if anybody wants to submit a bill to amend the Local Government Act, this is something that we need to amend the law for, to really clarify. Because when you clarify now, then service delivery cannot have a problem. Elementary school education is completely for local government. So when they are building an elementary school, they know that they have to finish the building. They know that they have to provide teacher for it. They know that they have to provide stationery for it. That's their function. They will not be depending on local government to do it. Then they will include all the costs in their budget. But for now, nothing is clear as to what their functions are. And because they were just there to run errands for national government, you could appoint any incompetent person to go and be superintendent in Sino. But once you properly do decentralization, then you have to make sure that there are competent people to run the counties.
Thank you.
So, Tom, my last question is, under decentralization or the local government, who's supposed to do this? Let me show you the picture.
As you can see, this is Dubai River.
This is
The entire crossing point
my
have
home
been
area in my
damaged,
administrative
and
district.
people are trying to manage to cross. People here, my people, I tell you, why are the representatives and the senators who felt that they could do good representation of the Jilipo people?
You see, if they were decentralized, you wouldn't be waiting for people from Monrovia to fix that bridge. You would have some. The people will. I mean, if it's going to cost a certain amount of money where you need resources, fine. But there can be a temporary. They can put here together and come up with a temporary solution to these small problems until they permanently resolve it. But waiting for Monrovia is a backward idea. It was intended probably for control a long time ago, but now we can see that is a backward idea. I hope this administration keeps pushing this decentralization, so let our people get kind of development and better benefits come to them. Definitely.
So, Dennis, to answer your question as to who does that, that's where the expenditure assignment can come in, right? And when you are doing expenditure assignment, you are assigning roles and responsibilities. There are principles that you have to follow. One of the principles is that anything that is that has inter-regional benefit, you don't assign it to local governments. The national government does it.
Correct.
So if that river is somewhere between Sano County and Grand Crew County, the national government does it because it's outside the geographic benefit, because local government deliver services that benefit their people around them. So Sino will only deliver service that benefit people that are in Sino. So if that river is anywhere along the border, the national government should be able to do it, because there will be interest as to who will do it. Sino will be looking at Grand Jide to do it. No, Sino will be looking at Grand Crew to build a bridge, and then Grand Crew will be looking at Sino to build it. They will not do it. So the local government does it to be able to improve transport. So this is why highways, like the road that is leading from Monrovia to Maryland, you don't give it to local government. The national government builds it.
Yeah.
This is why even in the US, when you see the highways,
this bridge,
interstate,
the interstate, right? The interstate highways are not built by the states.
Right.
They are built by the federal government, because when you leave it with the state, by the time they build the road, they get to their border, then they stop.
So this one is, you see the bridge is within Sino. I think a logging company did that, but now within Sino, within my district.
Right. So also when you're assigning responsibilities to local governments, you assign responsibilities based at the level where they have the capacity to do it. So if we think that the counties will not be able, they don't have the engineering capacity to build a bridge like this, then we don't assign it to them.
Yeah.
We leave it with the Ministry of Public Works to be able to do it. Because if you assign a responsibility to a local level of government and they don't have the capacity to do it, then you deny the citizens of that service. This is why all of these complicated engineering work, policy work, standard setting, all is left at the national level. So the Ministry of Public Works should actually do this.
Thank you, Tom. Let's wrap it up. Jimmy,
Yeah.
you go, and then our guest will.
Okay. You know, this topic is near and dear to my heart. I know it is very necessary if we're going to take Liberia to the next level, where people will be part of their own development. They'll be not marginalized, but partakers and have that ownership of where they're going. I think we better have more shows like this. And I understand, Tom. I understand you in Addis Ababa.
Yes.
And Jara the Balalende. One of these days we'll talk. Okay, I asked if you can eat your injera, but keep up the good work. That's what I say.
Yeah, in general, a little bit sour, so I can eat it, but not much.
Okay.
You're closing.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis. So for me personally, this is something I work on. All the 6 years I was working in Liberia, decentralization was something that I covered. So it's really personal to me. And then when you look at the history of the country since 1847, a lot of marginalization that took place in the country that actually led the country to the civil war that we went through. And this is why I was explaining that since decentralization became a popular governance model in the 1990s, we missed out on it because we were going through civil war. And then when the civil war ended, part of the reason why the governance commission was set up was to be able to identify the root causes that led us to civil war. And some of the issues that were identified was what? Marginalization, like Jamie was saying. Some of the other issues were land. That's why the Land Rights Law was passed along with the Local Government Act in 2018. So this was actually done to be able to consolidate the peace that we have so that everybody can feel satisfied. Give them that little 200,000 so they can decide how they want to use it. You will see the people in the communities will start getting proud. You know, I was part of the meeting when we decided that we're building this school. I was part of the meeting when we decided that we provide a hand pump. Allow them to be able to be part of decision-making process and let them deliver services that meet their taste. That's the whole essence of what? Decentralization. And the participation of the county caucuses in presiding over the county development fund, that was just an intermediary step as we move towards the passage of the local government law and devolution to actually take place. So for lawmakers to think that, okay, because it happened in the past, we need to go back to it, it's like you're taking us backwards instead of taking us forward. So I will ask the representative that submitted this bill to kindly withdraw it. If he does not want to withdraw it, we ask the other lawmakers not to support him in passing this law. We ask the citizens, like I said initially, to call on all of their representatives to stop this process. What we should be discussing at this point in time is to actually move decentralization forward. Like I said, it has a lot of benefit. It will help us with generating revenue to increase our tax revenue that we want to collect, especially with what the boy Jala keeps saying he wants to get to $1 billion. The local governments will be of help to you. We want to call on the legislature to transfer that responsibility of levying these fees and taxes to the county council instead of dissolving them. Let them actually authorize them to start doing that work. They also need, the legislature, interestingly, also need to set up the range for honorarium, because the county council, those who are serving, they are not paid salaries. So they meet on a quarterly basis and they're supposed to meet on an emergency basis. The legislature is supposed to set a range to say if they sit they can get maybe $5 or $10 or $15. Imagine these are the people that you are representing from your district. The legislature has not set up that honorarium. So they are working free. And then they want to dissolve them. How will you love your people and want to treat them that way? So I could talk about this the rest of the week because it's really personal to me. I come from Lofa County. My village is never going to develop with a centralized system of government until we devolve and allow them to participate in the governance process. So thanks for the opportunity. The one message I just wanted to deliver is that this amendment will take us back. It will destroy the foundation of decentralization and it will re-centralize power, which is not good for the country.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jamie. I want to thank our listeners, those in Monrovia, in Liberia, and other parts of the world. Until then, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Join us tomorrow, Friday night, for Friday night debate. Good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians.